In this lecture, we'll be talking about data types. So a data type represents the type of data that will be stored in a variable or in our memory. So for example, when we were trying to perform some basic addition, subtraction using our variables, we were trying to give values in the form of integers. So suppose I take z as 7. Here I have given z a value of integer, and if I take y as 5, that means I have stored 5, which is an integer value, to y. So here the data type that I have stored in the variable or in our memory is integer. So we need to talk about different type of data that we can store. And if I take an example of big websites like Google, Twitter, Facebook or LinkedIn, or if you are going to work as a web developer, if you are going to work as an application developer, you need to understand this point. So here on Google, if I search something, I give a data in the form of string. That means it can be a number, it can be some words, it can be combinations of numbers, words, anything. So here I am giving an input of string. That is why it is easy for Google to understand and differentiate what to search. And if I go for sign up page of Twitter, here you can see they have name and phone number. So that means name will obviously have a data type of string. That can be a mix of characters as well as the numbers. And if I talk about phone numbers, it has to be integers. So that is why data types are so important. And here you can see there might be some restrictions for phone number. So here if I try to give some characters, it will give me an error. So now this field has a data type of integer and it can verify according to the input that I am giving. Now let us understand data types in detail. Python has two types of data types. The first one is built-in data types and the second one is user-defined data types. Built-in data types, that means Python has predefined, they have some functionalities, they have some restrictions and they have their own rules. So mostly if you are doing basics of Python, it is really sufficient to understand built-in data types. But if you are jumping with algorithm, if you are jumping with data structure, you will understand the user-defined data types. For now, we will be understanding built-in data types. Now, the built-in data types are of 5 types. The first one is none, second one is numeric, third one is sequence, fourth is set, and fifth is mapping, which is also known as dictionaries. So if I talk about none, let me give you an example. In other languages like C or Java, it is called as null. So here if I want to create a variable but I don't want to give any value to that particular variable, I can give it as none. Let me take an example with x, and if I give it as none, make sure you have a capital N. And if I press enter, you can see the value of x will be none. And if I want to check that particular value, I just want to print x and you can see I don't get any result. And if I try to take x as 5 now, and if I print x, you can see the result is 5. The second built-in function I want to talk about is numeric type. It is already break down into 3 parts, which is int, float and complex. So if you have studied basic mathematics, I guess you already know integer, float and complex. If you don't know, don't worry. So if I take an example here again, if I take a as 50, here we have assigned the value to a as 50, which is the integer. And if I take a second variable b and give it as a value of 50.5, here I have provided this particular variable as a float value. And if I take a new variable c and provide a value of 50 plus 5j, here you will understand that this particular value is complex value. So if you want to check the type at any point of time, all you have to do is just type and give the variable name. Here I will be taking a, and then let me take b, and then let me take c. Now you can understand that if I take an example with a, I have a value of int. If I take example with b, I have a value of float. And if I take an example of c, I have a value of complex. There is a fourth category with numeric type that is known as boolean. And here in Python it is known as bool. In Java, in C or in any different language it is known as boolean. So which basically have a value of true or false. Python internally represent true as 1 and false as 0. These true and false mainly used to compare different conditions. And if a certain condition is true, then the particular task will be performed, and if the certain condition is false, then the task can be stopped. So for now, if I take an example here, after every time we fill some fields on Facebook and we click on sign up, Facebook might give an error because it goes through various conditions, and if all the required conditions are satisfied, then only it allows us to move forward. But if any of the condition is not satisfied, it replies false, and if all the conditions are satisfied, it replies true. So at this point of time, they compare each and every field with the requirement. And if I do this particular sign up, you can see I got error. But if I fill all the fields, it will give a true signals and it will directly pass. Let us perform some task in a shell. So if here I try to compare A, and supposedly if A is greater than 5, and if I try to print this particular value of A, what do you think? It has a value of true. That means 10 is greater than 5, of course. And if I take another example and I kept these values in vice versa mode and try to print A again, you can see it printed as false. So mainly these true and false are used for comparison. So once you try to understand the if, else, while loop, these statements are really important. Let me take a simple example. So if I take A as 10 and B as 20, and if suppose I try to compare them, so this is a condition operator. We will be talking about this in later section, but for now I have taken A as 10, B as 20, and if A is less than B, then we need to perform something. So here I want to perform, like, if this particular case happens, I want to print hello, and if this doesn't happen, I want to print. Now you can see our condition was if A is less than 20, we will be printing hello, else we will be printing OK. For now A was less than 20, so they have given a true signal and it was passed. So mainly these type of conditions are used to compare between different situations. And I talked about Facebook. There are several examples which I also include. That means once you are comfortable with the conditional operators and all the other things, you will be really using these type of thing. In the next lecture, let us talk about sequence in Python, which includes string, list, tuple, range, and lot more things.